That is Glen West, senior writer over at Go247. G, good morning. How are you?
Doing all right, guys. I apologize if you might hear a rogue cough here every once in a while. I'm still trying to put away this illness, but I'm feeling all right. I'm feeling much better. How are you guys doing?
Doing all good. Sick of the Aggie talk already after Saturday night. That was a huge win for Texas A&M and seemed like a little bit of a setback loss for LSU. What did you take away from the performance at Kyle Field?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly was a tale of two halves, and I think Coach Kelly kind of led off with that statement that I think it's applicable, though, for how LSU came out in that game. I thought they really controlled the first 35 minutes or so of that performance and really did a nice job defensively of shutting Connor Wegman down. But the total second half collapse there, I mean, it was in all phases. It started with special teams. It continued there with the Nussmeier turnovers, and then defensively, when A&M made that quarterback change, LSU just had no answers for Marcel Reed. And so it was really at all levels of this team that you saw LSU come up on the short end of their preparation in the second half. I thought the defense was a little bit of the most alarming to me, that they couldn't make the switch there with Marcel Reed. Yeah, the adjustment. Yeah, they just could not find any answers for him. And I thought that because I mean, really what they were doing is it was pretty much the same play over and over again. It was just a read option, just, reading the linebackers, reading the defense, and, Marcel Reed hitting a hole. And I will say, like, Reed is probably one of the fastest mobile quarterbacks I think LSU's faced this year. I mean, they faced, a lot of really really mobile guys, but just the pure speed element of this, I mean, he was in the second level, like on a flash. I mean, he was really back there, creating a lot of chaos and really had LSU on their heels for much of that second half. So that's something they have to get cleaned up. I think Blake Baker will have this team, this defense, a lot more prepared for these mobile guys going forward, especially because you're going to be facing a lot of them, whether it's Jalen Milroe at Alabama, DJ Lagway at Florida's got some legs to him, Jackson Arnold at Oklahoma, Diego Pavia at Vanderbilt. All these guys can run a little bit, and I don't think there's a threat unless they get injured that they're going to be taken off the field at some point during the game. So, LSU's got to get better at managing a quarterback that can move a little bit offensively. 7 turnovers now or 7 interceptions now for Nussmeier, and 3 of the last 4 games. It's the good and the bad with him right now. I mean, like, he can make all the throws. I think he has the utmost confidence that he can make all the throws. And right now, I think that's just kind of playing to his detriment. He's feeling like he has to do a little bit too much because he's got absolutely no pulse of a run game to kind of help complement his skill set and what the passing game's trying to do. So there's a lot of work to do here this week. I think LSU's going to take this week to recover a little bit more than they did the first bye week, but they also have to kind of mix in some football here because they have a lot of work to do before Alabama on November 9th.
Glenn, I know it's a simple proposition, but the answer seems difficult. Why can they not run the football?
It's a mixture of a lot of things. I think, interior on the offensive line, they just have not gotten the push. I think you could look at, certainly the calls. I mean, it's a lot of inside zone. It's a lot of trying to run it down your throat in the run game. And they just haven't been able to get that push up front. I think the backs have had a tough time seeing holes open. And when they have hit some holes, or when they have seen some holes and hit some holes, I think they've done a pretty decent job of getting into the second level and making guys miss if you're Caden Durham. But there's just no consistency right now in kind of how of any kind of run that they can lean on, whether it's counters or just straight up the middle. I mean, they don't have very many runs that they can go to, and I think they're going to be in the work. They're going to be in the lab, just trying to find out what runs they feel like they can have success with. And you didn't even see Caleb Jackson get a carry in this last game. I think the writing's on the wall that he's just not having the kind of impact in a game that LSU was hoping for going into the year. So hopefully they can get maybe something going with him. I mean, they don't have a whole lot of answers right now in the run game, and I think it's just the same thing that Coach Kelly keeps saying over and over again. It's just they've got to find some way to complement this passing game, and they haven't been able to do that on a consistent basis.
You hear anything on Dellinger?
I have not. I mean, I think it's an ankle. They were taping up and working on his ankle pretty heavily during the second half there when he went out. We'll probably learn some more today from Coach Kelly of what exactly it is he's dealing with, but he's another one that you have to get healthy, right? I mean, I would argue he's probably been your least penalized offensive lineman this year. I think he's held up pretty well, but he's a guy that's had a lot of injuries in his history. So hopefully they can get him healthy and get him back on the field for the last month of the season.
You saw Chris Hilton for the first time this year. What'd you think of his input, and where's his role moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, look, you saw them take a couple deep shots to Chris. I think the one touchdown that they kind of threw up to him, he jumped maybe a little bit too early, and he was still trying to get kind of the feel of the game back there with that one. But he's going to go vertical on you, and I think that's an element to this offense that LSU really has been missing with their passing game for much of the year. And so I think they're going to continue to lean into Chris. He had a couple catches there, I think, and was able to turn up field for some good yards. But it was good to see him out there and just kind of get his feet back, under him, and hopefully he can carry the couple catches he did have into this final month of the season, because I think they're going to need him. You've got C.J. Daniels that's been a little bit banged up here in recent weeks. You've had Kyle Parker go down. I mean, they really need kind of a fresh, a new fresh pair of legs to kind of help get them through the rest of the season. And I think Hilton's a prime candidate to see a lot of targets. I think him and Nussmeier have a really great chemistry. We saw it most of the offseason. We certainly saw it in the Wisconsin game. So, I know fans have been waiting to see him and been waiting to see why the media has been, pumping him up so much this year. But I think as he gets kind of his feet wet and gets really back into the fold of this offense, then that he'll have a greater impact here over the next 3, 4, 5 weeks.
Let me preface this by saying I'm a huge Blake Baker fan. I think his hiring was a home run. It has proven to be that both on the field and on the recruiting trail. That look late in the fourth quarter on the sideline, once Reed was in there and established there was nothing that they could do. There was no in-game adjustments. There was no player. There was no shift. There was nothing that they could push that was going to make this stop. How does that happen?
It's a great question, and I wish we would get an opportunity to talk with Coach Baker about that, because we've heard so many differing, quotes from Kelly and from Greg Penn. Greg Penn was telling us they didn't really prepare for Reed at all leading up to that game. Coach Kelly was saying, even just yesterday on the Paul Heinbaum show, that they had a plan, and it was probably more lenient towards what they had just faced with Taylon Green. They had prepared for a running quarterback in Taylon Green, but I do think that there was a pretty big difference between Taylon Green and Marcel Reed. I mean, Taylon Green was, pulling the ball, looking to pass on a lot of the, kind of read option plays that they were running. And then, Marcel Reed, his first read was just go, just pull the ball and go. And so, I think that there was, I think you could obviously see on the field there was just not a lot of time put into Marcel Reed and kind of his potential of entering that game. But LSU, look, they executed their first game plan really well against Connor Wegman. I thought that they really had, A&M kind of on the ropes there. And I think it was more of a really great move for Mike Elko to put Marcel Reed in there and switch things up on LSU than anything else. So, look, it's not a great look, for this 1 week. I think you hope it's just an aberration for Blake Baker and what's a long, successful career as a defensive coordinator here at LSU. But, it was certainly a learning lesson for him. It's a learning lesson for this coaching staff and certainly the players that were on the field on Saturday.
Speaking of next Saturday, the game's going to be at night. Should be an electric atmosphere with LSU Bama, as always. Recruiting going to be at tip-top there with both Bryce Underwood and Jakeem Stewart going to be in town. What's the push on Underwood here now that Michigan has been out loud? You've got big boosters, Dave Portnoy coming out and saying that he's got multi-million dollars laying on the table for Underwood. And then, of course, Jakeem Stewart will be in town in Baton Rouge. Again, if you're paying attention, you've seen him a lot here over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, this is going to be a huge weekend for not only the football program but the basketball program. 5-star big man Chris Sinak's going to be on the list for LSU basketball, so that's going to be really important to lock down. Jackson Cantwell is a top 5 player in 2026, an offensive lineman. He's going to be in town next week as well. But you're right. This is absolutely, I think, going to be about the 2 players you just mentioned there with Underwood and Jakeem Stewart. I guess we'll start with Underwood. I mean, I tend to believe, a recruit's actions more than their words. And, right now we haven't even heard Underwood come out and say anything about Michigan, and we certainly haven't seen him pop up on Michigan's campus. Like, I think that we have to see something from him before we start to believe these Michigan rumors. And I think he and his family have made it very, very clear that LSU is, that they kind of made their minds up. And, I think this visit here coming next week will be a great opportunity for Joe Sloan and this offensive staff to just kind of firm things up with him and just kind of get kind of maybe the down low on what's going on with the Michigan stuff. So this is going to be an important visit for LSU for certainly for Underwood to kind of ride this thing home in December with the signing period. But in regards to Jakeem Stewart, I think this is your last big fish that's out there if you're LSU for this 2025 class. I mean, he would really round this thing out in a fantastic manner if LSU was able to land him. And he's just at Ohio State. He could very well go back to Ohio State for the Michigan game at the end of the year. He was just at Oregon, and there's a lot of buzz around Oregon right now. I think you ask seven different people, and they might tell you 5 to 7 different answers on kind of what their feel is right now on Jakeem Stewart. So I think there's a lot of openness right now in that recruitment. LSU's got to knock that one out of the park, and I think they are going to pull out all the stops, and they're going to have obviously a lot of the commits and the current recruits out there to kind of help get that over the finish line. So Stewart's been on campus a lot this fall, and certainly going back to the summer. This is a player that LSU's built a really strong relationship with, and we'll see if Bo Davis and Blake Baker and Brian Kelly can get this thing over the finish line here with a great visit on November 9th.
What do you think about this Bama-LSU matchup a couple weeks out?
I think LSU will be able to move the ball. I mean, I just have not been all that impressed with Bama's defense. I mean, this is not the Nick Saban of old defense where, LSU would be lucky to get past the 50-yard line. I think LSU's offense will be able to find some success in this offense or against this defense. If they can just keep the turnovers down, if they can limit the penalties, they're going to have the home crowd on their side. I really like LSU's ability to put up points. But look, my primary concern is, what are they going to do about Jalen Milroe, and certainly with Ryan Williams there. He's an electric freshman who I think they'll look to early and often in this game. But Milroe and the ability that he has with his legs is going to be something that LSU is going to be very, very much fixated on over the next couple weeks. And so how they handle his mobile ability, if they can make him more of a passer than a runner, I think that plays into their hands a little bit better. But this is definitely going to be the kind of their last big time top 25 matchup. We'll see kind of what happens with Vandy if that's going to be a top 25 game as well. But this is LSU's opportunity here to get another big time top 15, top 20 win before obviously the end of the regular season. So it's going to be very, very, very important for LSU to get this one. And there's really no, other circumstance here than to win out if they really want to keep those playoffs hopes alive.
Matt McMahon had a good offseason on the recruiting trail, both on in high school prospects and in the transfer portal. Get your first look at him tonight. Free admission at the Maravich Center as Loyola is in town taking on LSU at 7 o'clock. What's your expectations for this year's squad?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a team that absolutely can compete for a tournament spot if they, can kind of handle their business in the non-conference. That's been a very consistent theme with what McMahon has preached these last couple of weeks when he's met with media. Is that if LSU had gotten off to a much stronger start in the non-conference play, they might have had an outside shot or an outside case of being a tournament team, kind of on that bubble. But they had 5 losses in non-conference play. A couple of them were pretty bad losses. That one to Nichols really kind of sticks out. So. They got to handle their business this year in non-conference. Limit it to 1 or 2 losses, and then really get into SEC play and show that they can be around a 500 team, maybe a little bit better. If they can get to that 9-10 win threshold, I think that if you combine that with a really great non-conference record, then you have enough wins and you have the resume to go out there and make that tournament case. So I think all of that is within grasp for this team. I'm going to be very interested to see kind of what the rotations are. I kind of have a feeling of who could be like big time role players or big time roles on this team. I think Jalen Reed, Tyrell Ward, Cam Carter, Jordan Sears, Mike Williams, those 5 to me are all going to have big time roles on this roster. But outside of that, I think there's a lot of minutes up in the air, a lot of minutes up for grabs here early in the season, and it's going to be important that LSU has that chemistry and that culture kind of locked down a little bit earlier in the season than maybe they did last year to get out of the non-conference play pretty unfazed.
Glen West, senior writer, 247, Glen West 21 on